A few years ago, if someone told you that Linux would become one of the easiest desktop operating systems on the planet, most people would have laughed. Linux had a reputation. It was seen as complicated, nerdy, and only for programmers who lived inside terminals and wrote mysterious commands all day. Meanwhile, Windows was considered the normal choice, the safe option that everyone could use without thinking. But something has changed, and it's happening faster than most people realize. Linux isn't just catching up anymore. In many ways, it's becoming easier, smoother, and more beginner-friendly than Windows itself, and that shift is starting to challenge everything people assumed about desktop computing. Think back to how installing Linux used to feel. You had to burn ISO files, mess with BIOS settings, and hope your Wi-Fi driver worked after booting. Today, many Linux distributions install with a guided process that feels simpler than setting up a new Windows PC. You plug in a USB drive, follow a few clear steps, and within minutes, you're looking at a polished desktop with apps already installed. No forced account creation, no endless privacy prompts, and no cluttered setup screens asking you to subscribe to services you didn't ask for. For a beginner, that simplicity changes everything. The first impression matters, and modern Linux finally delivers one that feels welcoming rather than intimidating. What's even more surprising is how visually polished Linux has become. There was a time when Linux desktops looked rough compared to the glossy design of commercial operating systems. Now you can install a distribution and immediately see smooth animations, modern icons, clean layouts, and customization tools built directly into the system. You don't need third-party hacks to change themes, move panels, or tweak how windows behave. Everything feels flexible, but also approachable. Instead of locking users into one rigid workflow, Linux gives them options without overwhelming them. That balance between power and simplicity is something Windows has struggled with as it grows more complex over time. Another major change is software management. Installing apps on Linux used to mean hunting for packages or typing commands into a terminal. Today, most desktop environments include an app store that works almost like a mobile phone. You open a store, search for an application, click install, and it's done. Updates happen in one place instead of through dozens of separate updaters. For someone switching from Windows, this can actually feel easier because there's less confusion about where software comes from. You're not bouncing between random websites, dealing with installers full of checkboxes, or worrying about hidden add-ons sneaking into your system. Performance is another area where Linux has quietly gained an advantage. As Windows evolves, it often adds new background services, ads, and integrated features that consume system resources. On older or mid-range hardware, that can make a computer feel sluggish over time. Many Linux desktops, on the other hand, run smoothly even on aging machines. The system boots quickly, apps launch fast, and you feel like you're in control of what's running. For users in regions where upgrading hardware frequently isn't always affordable, this efficiency isn't just convenient, it's transformative. A 5-year-old laptop that struggles with Windows can suddenly feel new again with Linux. Then there's privacy. Modern users are becoming more aware of how much data their operating systems collect. Windows has faced criticism for telemetry, cloud integration, and built-in services that track usage patterns. Linux flips that model completely. Most distributions don't require accounts, don't push ads, and don't collect personal data by default. For someone who just wants a computer that respects their choices, this can feel refreshing. And because the system is open, anyone can examine how it works under the hood. That transparency builds trust in a way that closed platforms often struggle to match. Gaming used to be the biggest argument against Linux. For years, people said, it's great for programming, but you can't really play games. That narrative is quickly changing. Compatibility tools have improved so much that many popular titles run with little effort, and some perform nearly as well as they do on Windows. Even launching games from a single library feels simple now, which removes one of the last psychological barriers keeping casual users away. When someone realizes they can browse the web, edit documents, watch videos, and play games on the same system without fighting with drivers, the idea that Linux is hard starts to disappear. Hardware support has improved too. Modern kernels recognize a wide range of devices automatically, from printers to Bluetooth headphones. You plug something in, and it just works. That level of plug-and-play convenience used to be a Windows strength, but Linux has closed that gap dramatically. Updates happen in the background without forcing restarts at inconvenient times, and users feel less pressure to constantly babysit their system. The computer becomes a tool again, rather than something demanding attention every few days. One of the biggest philosophical differences between Linux and Windows is control. Windows has gradually shifted toward a model where the system decides more things for you: updates, interface changes, and even the placement of certain features. Linux takes the opposite approach. You choose how your desktop looks, how updates behave, and what software gets installed. Yet despite offering that freedom, modern distributions present sensible defaults that make them easy to use out of the box. That's the key reason why Linux is becoming accessible to everyday users. It no longer forces you to learn everything at once. You can start simple and explore deeper customization only if you want. Community support is another underrated advantage. If you run into an issue on Linux, chances are someone has already discussed it in a forum or created a guide. Because many users genuinely enjoy sharing knowledge, solutions often appear quickly. Instead of feeling locked into a single company's ecosystem, you become part of a global community that values collaboration. That atmosphere can be surprisingly motivating, especially for beginners who feel nervous about trying something new. Even content creation workflows are evolving. Video editors, graphic tools, and streaming software now run smoothly on Linux, giving creators more flexibility than ever before. With modern drivers and improved application compatibility, people can record, edit, and upload content without needing Windows as a middleman. This matters because creators influence trends. When audiences see their favorite YouTubers or streamers using Linux comfortably, it changes public perception. What once seemed niche starts to feel normal. Another interesting shift is how Linux handles updates. Instead of massive disruptive upgrades that overhaul the system overnight, many distributions provide smaller incremental updates that keep things stable. Some even allow you to roll back changes if something goes wrong. That safety net reduces fear for beginners who worry about breaking their computer. It creates a sense of reliability that rivals and sometimes surpasses traditional operating systems. Customization also plays a psychological role in making Linux feel easier. When users can tailor their workspace to match how they think, the system feels more intuitive. Want a classic desktop layout? It's possible. Prefer a modern minimal interface? Also possible. Unlike Windows, where major design changes are dictated by a company's vision, Linux empowers individuals to shape their environment. This freedom doesn't just appeal to enthusiasts. It helps new users feel comfortable because they can recreate familiar workflows. Of course, Linux isn't perfect. There are still certain specialized applications that run better on Windows, and some hardware manufacturers prioritize Windows drivers first. But the gap is shrinking rapidly. Many tasks that once required Windows now have reliable alternatives, and web-based tools reduce the need for platform-specific software altogether. As more services move to the cloud, the underlying operating system matters less, and that's where Linux's simplicity becomes a huge advantage. What's fascinating is how the definition of easy is changing. For years, easy meant familiar. People used Windows because it was what they knew, not necessarily because it was simpler. Now, new users who start directly with Linux often find it straightforward because they don't carry old assumptions. They open an app store, install programs, and begin working without worrying about antivirus pop-ups or confusing system settings. The experience feels calm and uncluttered, which challenges the idea that mainstream equals simple. Businesses and schools are also starting to notice these benefits. Lightweight systems reduce hardware costs, and the absence of licensing fees makes large deployments more affordable. When students grow up using Linux in classrooms, they bring those habits into their personal lives. Over time, that creates a new generation of users who see Linux not as an alternative, but as a normal everyday platform. Cultural shifts like this happen slowly at first, then suddenly accelerate. Security is another area where Linux's design shines. Because it's built with strong permission systems and a focus on user control, malware struggles to gain the same foothold it often finds on Windows machines. Updates arrive quickly and vulnerabilities are patched transparently. For everyday users, this means less anxiety about downloading the wrong file or clicking a suspicious link. The system encourages safer behavior by default, which contributes to that feeling of ease people talk about. As Linux becomes more approachable, the conversation around operating systems is evolving. Instead of asking whether Linux is ready for beginners, people are starting to ask whether Windows still offers a clear advantage. That's a dramatic reversal from a decade ago. When an open platform matches or exceeds the usability of a commercial one, it forces the industry to rethink what users truly value. Convenience, speed, privacy, and control are becoming more important than brand loyalty. The rise of modern desktop environments also plays a huge role in this transformation. Designers have focused on reducing friction, simplifying menus, and creating workflows that feel natural. Little details, smooth gestures, clear settings panels, integrated search, make daily tasks easier without drawing attention to themselves. The goal isn't to mimic Windows exactly, but to create something that feels intuitive in its own way. And for many people, that fresh approach makes using a computer feel exciting again. Another reason Linux feels easier today is the growth of pre-configured distributions aimed at beginners. Instead of forcing users to assemble everything from scratch, these systems arrive with codecs, drivers, and popular applications already installed. You don't need to hunt for missing pieces after setup. You can browse, watch videos, and get work done immediately. That "it just works" moment is powerful because it removes the fear that once kept newcomers away. As more developers support cross-platform tools, the last barriers continue to fall. Web browsers, messaging apps, and productivity software run almost identically across systems, so switching no longer feels risky. When the core tasks of daily life function smoothly, users begin to question why they should tolerate limitations they don't like. That's where Linux's flexibility becomes irresistible. You're not stuck with a single vision of how computing should work. You can shape it to fit your needs. The most surprising part of this evolution isn't just that Linux is easier, it's that it feels lighter emotionally. There's a sense of calm when you use a system that doesn't push subscriptions, pop-ups, or constant reminders to sign into services. You focus on your work instead of managing the operating system itself. For many users, that shift in mindset is more valuable than any single feature. Looking ahead, the future of desktop computing may be defined by openness rather than exclusivity. As Linux continues to improve its ease of use, it challenges the assumption that powerful tools must come with complexity. The line between beginner and expert systems is fading, replaced by platforms that scale naturally with the user's skills. Whether someone wants a simple web browsing machine or a deeply customizable workstation, Linux can adapt without forcing them into one path. And that's why the statement "Linux is becoming too easy" isn't really a criticism, it's a reflection of how far the platform has come. Ease doesn't mean losing power. It means removing unnecessary barriers. When a system lets you start quickly but still offers depth when you're ready, it creates a welcoming experience that grows with you. For many people, that balance makes Linux feel not just like an alternative to Windows, but like a smarter evolution of what a desktop operating system can be. In the end, the question isn't whether Linux can replace Windows for everyone. The real question is whether users still see Windows as the only comfortable choice. As Linux continues to simplify its interface, streamline software installation, and respect user freedom, it reshapes expectations about what computing should feel like. And if this trend continues, we may reach a point where switching to Linux isn't considered a bold experiment anymore. It's simply the obvious next step for anyone who wants a fast, clean, and genuinely user-focused desktop experience.